What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I am Dial, back with another movie review. Today we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 that came out last weekend. Sorry for the late review. I know I'm a bit behind on a couple of movies. I still need to go see Barbie and Oppenheimer too. But I've been away for a couple of weeks doing some family stuff, but I am back. So I will give you my thoughts on the other two movies when I eventually go see them. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get into Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. So, I think this is the first time I'm talking about Mission Impossible on my channel, which is, surprising because I'm actually a big fan of the Mission Impossible movies. It's one of my favorite action franchises of all time. It's one of my favorite spy films. I think it rivals the James Bond movies in my opinion. And you guys know, I'm a big Bond fan as well. But I feel like Mission Impossible is just as good, if not better, than James Bond, in my opinion. First of all, as far as quality of the films, James Bond has been like up and down, up and down. But I feel like with Mission Impossible, I feel like it's a much more consistent franchise as far as quality, because I feel like with each installment, it gets better and better and better, And I find enjoyment in all of the movies up until this point. I even enjoy the first two. Specifically, Mission Impossible 2, I know a lot of people, hate on it, but me personally, I had a good time with even Mission Impossible 2. In Mission Impossible 1, like, I'll say there's some dated stuff with the first movie, but I still overall enjoy the feel, and the performances are pretty good. The action's still really good. So, with each movie, I still think it gets better and better. I think it didn't really start to find its footing really until like the third movie. I think that's where it went off to the races, is Mission Impossible 3. And then we had Ghost Protocol, which was great. Then we had Rogue Nation, which was great. And then we had Fallout, which I think is possibly the best one of the series. So it's like, up until this point at least. So yeah, I just really love this franchise. And Tom Cruise, honestly, he's one of my favorite actors / movie stars. I know he gets a lot of bad rep out there, but for me, I enjoy him as an actor a lot. He's one of the last great movie stars in Hollywood, and he's one of the few actors that are still continuing to do the stuff that he does at his age. He puts his all into every project, so I always want to go see a movie because of him. So director Christopher McQuarrie, who has taken over the series since Rogue Nation, I thought he'd been doing a really good job with this franchise, elevating it to new heights that it hasn't been before. And I feel like he really understands this world and this franchise. I think he got the best grasp on the movies compared to all the other directors. Even though the other directors, I think, did a really good job for the most part. So of course I'm excited for another Mission Impossible. They're saying that Dead Reckoning will be split into two parts, and it will possibly conclude the majority of the franchise, even though I've heard recently that Tom Cruise wants to continue to do Mission Impossible movies till he's 80, which, man, he's a madman, but, hey, if he can still do the stuff that he's doing, why not? Why not, right? But anyway, Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2, it's been, like, built up to be, like, the finale of, these set of movies, I guess. Whatever we'll get in the future, we'll see. But regardless of that, I was still very excited to see it. We've seen quite a bit of Part 1 and Part 2s coming out as of late. Fast and Furious is doing their Part 1 and Part 2. Dune's about to come out with its Part 2. We just came off of Across the Spider-Verse, because that's also split into two parts technically, with the Beyond the Spider-Verse, continuing off of what the cliffhanger was in that movie. And now we have this. I didn't really have a problem with it being split into two parts, because as far as the story, I never have a problem with the story, as far as, what Christopher McQuarrie was been doing with the franchise up to this point. So it must be a really big story to tell. So I trust them completely. I trust him. I trust Tom Cruise. I know they have a plan going into this. I was still very excited. And as far as the marketing looked really, really good. I was really excited once again. It's possible we'll end up being one of the best, action movies of the year. And, from the early reviews of this movie, it looked like that was going to be the case. You know, once again, this is a movie that's been affected by the pandemic. And of course, it's very similar to Top Gun Maverick, which Tom Cruise was also in. He was adamant on not having it be released streaming. He wanted this to be a theatrical experience, so they were going to do whatever it takes to, to hold off until everyone would be able to see it in the theater, which I totally commend them for doing that, because I feel like with Mission Impossible, this is a movie that you need to see in theaters. This is not something you should be seeing in streaming. That's exactly how I felt with the previous movies too. Like, you need to see these movies in the theater. That they're made for it. The action, set pieces, just the thrill of it all, the spectacle of these movies. It needs a big screen for people to see. So I was going to wait however long it was going to take. After Top Gun Maverick, which I thought was a great movie, I think this will follow similar footsteps as well. And overall, that's exactly how I felt coming out of it. This movie is great. It was so awesome. It was worth the wait. Once again, Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise just continues to bring such, great stuff to the Mission Impossible franchise. This falls right in line with the other movies. I think it's absolutely great. And it has me excited to see how they're going to conclude this franchise in general. As always, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, I think is absolutely great. It just blows my mind that, I have to keep reminding myself that Tom Cruise is 60 years old and he's doing all of these stunts that he's doing now. It's just, you rarely see that in Hollywood nowadays, that the actor is willing to do as much as he does, with the practical stunts and, the fight scenes, all that action set pieces. For the most part, it's him. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen like the featurette with him, riding the motorcycle off of a ramp / cliff, and then jumping off with a parachute. Like most people, I'm sure, have seen that featurette. And that's all him. He did it himself. So, a lot of people may consider him to be a madman. Like, why is he putting himself in danger and all that stuff? But like I've always said, like, that's how you really get the integrity of an action scene. When you're actually seeing the people do the stunts themselves, you get more invested. It doesn't feel as fake. It feels more tangible seeing, these action set pieces being done by actual people. I just came off of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and that seemed to be a big issue of how they were relying so much on visual effects, because of Harrison Ford's age and stuff like that. Which, I don't necessarily have a huge issue with that because they have to do what they had to do. But like, you just see a huge difference between what they do in Dial of Destiny and what they do here. I mean, they both have train sequences and stuff like that. It's like, it just feels more immersive. And then they also have similar set pieces from what we saw with Fast and Furious as well. I think they both had set pieces in Venice, and like, even with that, you see a big difference with how they execute the action scenes in that. Just everything being, using practical effects as much as possible, only using CGI when it's absolutely necessary, and that's exactly what I love to see in the Mission Impossible films. That's one of the reasons why Tom Cruise is one of my favorite movie stars / actors, because he puts himself, 100% effort with whatever movie that he's in. Whether the movie's bad, whether the movie's good, whether it's in the middle, he always puts 100% effort, And as far as his performance, is it anything super special? No. But I feel like he tries his best with the acting as well. Especially with these Mission Impossible movies, I'd be seeing a certain range from him that I don't normally see from him. One of the reasons why I appreciate the character of Ethan Hunt a little bit more than James Bond is because we get to see, the protagonist be a little bit more emotional, a little bit more vulnerable, and seeing him work with the team, I think helps, makes the character a little bit more relatable. It makes the whole premise a little bit more relatable because we're following these characters and we're invested in what's going on. You know, that's what kind of separates from James Bond, that, Ethan Hunt, it's not just about him, that he's actually working with a team, and I appreciate that from all the movies, when he, teaming up with Luther and Benji and Elsa, like, I love team dynamic since Rogue Nation, and it's once again really, really good here. I think all the actors are great. Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson. I think they're absolutely great. It's a shame they couldn't get Jeremy Renner in here. I think there was a way they possibly could have got him in here before, his incident, which, it's very sad to hear about what happened to him. I'm hoping he's staying healthy. But, since this is possibly the conclusion of these set of movies, I wish there was a way they were able to get him in here, at least for one more movie. But, it is what it is. But regardless of that, the team dynamic, I think, is absolutely great in this. We have a newcomer, Hayley Atwell from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I love Hayley Atwell, and I love her as Agent Carter. I honestly wish we were able to get more from her in the MCU. I know she had her own show, Agent Carter, which I haven't watched too much of, but we recently saw her as a variant, of Captain Carter in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But I love Hayley Atwell. I think she's great. She's absolutely beautiful. She's always a joy to have on screen. So I was excited to see her in this movie as well. And man, I thought she was great in this as well. The chemistry that she has with Ethan in this movie, I think, is absolutely great. I'm not going to spoil what her role is in this movie, but I thought it was interesting, what how her character plays into the plot. It was a lot more elaborate than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, I thought she was great. So charismatic, so funny, and how she worked with the other team, I thought, was pretty good as well. It was also great to see Vanessa Kirby again in this movie as the White Widow. I wish she had a little bit more to do. When she's in the movie, it is important, but I do wish that we were able to see just a little bit more from her in this movie, because I did enjoy her quite a bit in what was it, Rogue Nation or Ghost Protocol? You got to forgive me. I didn't have a chance to watch the previous movies before watching this, so I'm literally going off of what as much memory as I have from the previous movies. But she did have more of a role in the previous films, but I wish she had a little bit more here. But it was important when she was here. And honestly, that's a similar thing I have to say about Rebecca Ferguson as well. Even though she was also great in this movie, I thought she was great, but she wasn't in it as much as I thought she was going to be. It's also nice to see some callbacks to the first movie. Not only with certain appearances, but even how the movie's directed. You see a lot more Dutch angles and close-ups, which is very similar to how the filmmaking was in the first movie. And of course, going back to getting characters from the first film, like Henry Czerny as Kittredge from the first movie. I'm glad to see him back again. I was wondering how he would play a part in this installment. Even though I'm happy to see him, I was a bit concerned of how he was going to fit in. Is it just going to feel like oh, look, you remember this person from the first movie? We're bringing them in here, but that wasn't the case at all. His involvement in the plot makes a whole lot of sense, and I like the scenes that he is in. Of course, I like the banter that he has with Ethan in the film as well. So good to see him too. Once again, going back to the action set pieces, I still thought they were really entertaining. Of course, you have those scenes where Tom Cruise got to run. Of course, there's quite a few running scenes in here. Of course, you love to see it. You love to see it. Well, possibly my favorite set piece of the entire movie is Hayley Atwell's character Grace and Ethan riding in the little yellow car in Venice. I thought was probably my favorite set piece of the entire movie. you could tell that that was a slight nod to James Bond with For Your Eyes Only, where Bond also was in a small yellow car chase scene. So I like that little nod there. And once again, I gotta say, this is a better car chase scene than the chase scene in Fast 10. Come at me. But yeah, I just thought that whole scene was very entertaining. There was also some funny banter between Grace and Ethan that I really liked. It was just a very creative set piece. But all the set pieces are really good. The chase scene in the airport. Of course, talked about earlier with Ethan going off of the cliff. I thought it was a really awesome stunt. And of course, there's a train scene in here that also is a little bit of a nod to the first film as well, which I thought was very well done. But yeah, man, and also there was another like fight scene slash chase scene in at night in Venice as well, which I thought was pretty good. I even like the premise of this movie as well. So the antagonist of this film is actually not an actual person per se, but it's AI, artificial intelligence. That's their whole goal of this movie, is to get this key that can control the artificial intelligence that is controlling a whole bunch of technology across the world. And I think, as far as the premise of this movie, I think it's very, very interesting. And it also is something that we're kind of, dealing with in the real world as well. So I think it's very relevant for today. Once again, I'm not going to get too much into the plot for people that haven't seen it. But, I thought it was an interesting way for them to go about, having a threat in this movie. I thought it's something unique and different. And I'm definitely interested to see how they're going to execute it when we get to part 2. But yeah, I thought that was really, very cool. Is this my favorite of the Mission Impossible franchise? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But not to take anything away from this movie, I think it's still a great, great movie. But I honestly think that there are certain things in the previous movies that hit a little bit harder than this movie. As far as the stunts, even though they're really well done in this movie, I think there's a little bit more memorable stunts in the previous films. Like, we just coming off of Fallout, which a lot of people consider to be the best up until this point. I think like the set pieces and the stunts in that was a little bit more memorable than it was here. Like, yeah, Ethan just jump off, ride a bike off of a cliff and then parachuting off it, which is a cool stunt. But I think we've almost gotten to a point where how can you top Tom Cruise climbing on top of the building in Dubai? How can you top, Ethan hanging onto a plane while it's taking off? How can you top, that type of stuff, So it's like, with this one, I thought, the big like stunt of this movie was cool, but I don't think it was the best one we've seen in the series. And once again, going back to like the team dynamic, specifically what happens with Rebecca Ferguson, and even like Vanessa Kirby, and even going back to Simon Pegg and Vin Rhames, like they are important to the plot. They're not like, it's not like they're not in it. Like they are in it. The team dynamic is still there, but I feel like they were a little bit more involved in the previous films than they were here. And there's certain thing that happens with Rebecca that I kind of expected to happen, but like, I don't know. I still am kind of conflicted with how, with what happens to her character without spoiling anything. There was a choice that was made with her, which I was like, I don't know about that. Another thing that didn't work for me as well is like the actual, like, the henchman, I guess, slash, I guess they're also kind of the main villain. The main villain is AI, but like they have like, the minions, I guess you would say, of this movie. I thought were fine. They were fine. Gabriel and Paris, so they're like the actual like muscle of the group, like getting the stuff done for the AI, I guess. And I don't know, the actor playing Gabriel, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, Esai Morales. I thought he was solid. He wasn't really like like super great as the villain in here. Like it almost felt like he was a bit miscast. Like I didn't feel enough menace from him, enough charisma from him. To this day, I still feel like Philip Seymour Hoffman from Mission Impossible 3 is still the best villain of the franchise. They did have effort in here, so don't get me wrong, but I just feel like, his performance didn't really hit as hard as they wanted it to. Though Palm Clement Clementif, I am butchering these names. I am so sorry. She was Mantis in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It was really interesting to see her in such a different role. Like she's in actual being an actual henchman, kicking ass. Being intimidating and kind of creepy and stuff like that. Like I really enjoyed her as Paris. Like she really stepped up. She does remind me of one of those Bond villain henchmen, like she falls right in line with that. So I thought she was pretty good as well. But yeah, I wish Gabriel was, just a little bit better as far as performance. But I did like the action scenes that he did have with Ethan in the movie. So those were at least entertaining. Oh, another issue that I had with this movie, there is this subplot with these two, what was it? These two CIA/FBI agents that keep chasing after Ethan, Briggs and Dagus. Like, I don't know. Every time they kept popping up trying to chase after Ethan, it just kind of felt a little redundant and a little bit annoying. So yeah, I didn't really care for those two characters at all. Now another complaint that I've heard from people is that this one was a little bit more reliant on the visual effects than the previous movies. Like a lot of people want to look at like the train sequence that wasn't 100% a practical action set piece, and I tend to disagree a little bit about that. Because I know that the franchise has made its has set the standard of using a lot of practical stunts, a lot of practical effects and stuff like that, using CGI when it's absolutely necessary. And I guess it feels a bit jarring that this movie was a little bit more reliant on the visual effects as far as that train set piece, which that at the end of the day, that doesn't really bother me personally, because as long as you're still immersed in what's going on, you're still invested in the characters, you're still feeling the tension and the danger and the urgency of the situation, I don't really have a problem with it being, an effects heavy set piece, because the visual effects doesn't look bad. I think I do understand if it feels a bit jarring for people that are used to seeing a lot of practical stunts in the previous movies, but I personally didn't have a problem with it. I still thought the overall sequence was exciting. I still was invested in what was going on. And honestly, I don't even know how they will be able to do this whole train sequence practically. Like, not only would it cost a lot of money, but like, I think it'll be very dangerous to do something like that in real life. Like, I think people need to just take it easy a little bit more on the visual effects standpoint. Like, I know we had to deal with quite a few movies as of late where the effects were kind of questionable, but that seems to be putting a cloud over the visual effects in other movies that actually work really good. But yeah, overall, I still think this is a really, really enjoyable Mission Impossible movie. This falls right in line with the previous films. I still think it's a really good installment. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do for Dead Reckoning Part 2. As far as Part 1s and Part 2s are concerned, this is probably one of the better Part 1s I've seen in a while. I'm conflicted if this is a better Part 1 than Across the Spider-Verse, I'm going to be honest with you. But still, I thought it was handled really, really well. I thought Christopher McQuarrie did his thing directing this movie. As always, I think Tom Cruise is, once again, great as Ethan Hunt. I thought, the other members of the team was really, really good. Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson. I thought they were great. Haley Atwell was great as well. I liked the premise with the AI. I thought that's a very interesting premise, even though, I wish the henchman was done a little bit better. But yeah, man, This I recommend you guys go see in the theaters. Don't wait for this to be on streaming. Go out and see this in the theaters. Like, I think it will definitely enhance your experience as well. But yeah, overall, this is what we go to the movies for, to see spectacle. To see these over the top action set pieces. To feel the thrills and the excitement and the tension. You know, this is why we go to the movies for sure. And this may end up being one of my favorite blockbusters of the year. May end up being one of my favorite films of the year. Not gonna lie. So I will give Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 an A. But those are my thoughts on Dead Reckoning Part 1. Tell me, what did you guys think about it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was okay? How does this compare to the other Mission Impossible movies? Are you excited for Dead Reckoning Part 2? Comment your thoughts down below and let me know. So I definitely got to go back and talk about the previous Mission Impossible movies. I will possibly do some spoiler podcasts for in-depth dialysis on the previous movies. So tune in for those when they come out. But if you guys enjoyed this review, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. I am almost there. So if you guys enjoy my content and are not subscribed already, I would love it if you guys go down there and hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified on future videos I'll be doing, don't forget to hit the bell while you're at it. But that's all I have for you, Mission Impossible fans. And I will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you guys later. This message will self-destruct in 20 seconds or so.